Alright guys, take a look at this open air hive up in the tree. There's the ground, and really pretty. Nice wavy patterns. This all white stuff is new. Older stuff, yellow, probably 2-3 weeks old, like this tip. And then as you get to the center, it's definitely gonna be darker. So this is probably a good solid 3-4 month old hive, if not a little bit longer. Really good news is here's a queen cell. So the bees had swarmed off recently, which means half of them left with the old queen, and this is the new batch with the new queen. And there's not as many, so it makes this a little bit more pleasant to work with. Otherwise, you have a buttload of bees flying around everywhere. Good job, girls. And right now, they're really mellow. Hope I'm getting it. And touchdown, I hope. Bam. These open air hives are definitely one of my favorites, but they're actually one of the most dangerous projects we ever come across. One, because trees are unpredictable. You know, you can predict a roof or a wall, setting up, ladders and safety equipment, but with trees, especially with eucalyptus, they're called widow makers because the branches can spontaneously break at any time. So that makes it a little bit more interesting. But a lot of the prep work goes into securing the ladders, strapping ourselves off to make sure we're nice and safe. And then obviously we have to cut the beehive down. And unfortunately, I don't know if you can tell on this one, but my ladder is attached to the branch I have to saw down, which makes everything oh so much more interesting. I've been fairly accustomed to working by myself for many years, so I don't ever recommend anyone doing this solo, and I definitely don't recommend anyone doing this without someone who knows exactly what they're doing to walk you and guide you through the process. Otherwise, there's a lot of things that could go wrong. All right, beehive is on the ground. It's tethered to a pulley and tied off to my truck, so I get to work on it hanging so it doesn't squish on itself. All right, sun's going away, so I need to start yapping and start working. At this point, I only had about 15 minutes of daylight left, so I had to work fairly quickly. The idea behind this strategy right now is to carve off any extraneous parts of honeycomb, and that's the only piece of honey was right there, that rectangle I'm about to cut, which is fed right back to the bees. But I'm looking for the babies, I'm looking for the brood, because that's what's going to incentivize them to go from this branch into one of our boxes. Counter to popular belief is you can't really just grab the queen and move her and expect the rest of the bees to follow, because they have a lot of incentive riding on this branch. The babies, the brood, the food, the pollen, the honey, they're not going to leave that readily. They'll just take an egg and pop out a new queen. So the idea here is to capture the brood, move those over, something that they're familiar with, something they want to protect, and then shift that, and then clean out the rest of them, and then move the rest of the bees. And then from there, most likely 90% of the time, you're going to grab the queen, and she's going to follow the rest of the colony. All right, here are the babies, the brood, and that's what I'm kidnapping. So I'm not going to really find the queen in here, so I'm just going to move the babies, transfer the babies into the box, and then these bees will follow them, because right now the sun's about to set, and we want to make sure, or they're going to want to make sure that the babies stay warm. Over here, you've got some boy bees. Their cells, it's a little bit bigger, these flat ones. Got a little bit of nectar, a little bit of honey, and not too much pollen. Oh, there you go. There's some pollen right there. Now, at this point, I'm kind of racing against the clock, because when I started to cut the branch earlier, the bees kind of scattered and left the brood to climb up to the top because there's so much vibration. Now, that's not a really good thing when we're doing these removals, because especially now it's dropping below 60 degrees. I think at this point it was creeping towards like 58, 55 maybe. But the brood needs to keep it consistent. I've heard a range anywhere from 88 degrees to 95 degrees. So they have to stay warm, just like chicken eggs have to be warm to incubate properly. The same thing with the brood. This is where removals tank, because people will spend too much time looking for the queen and ignoring the brood. So what ends up happening is the brood dies And when there's so much dead bees or dead babies inside, it sounds horrible, but if there's a lot of dead bees inside the box, there's a threshold the bees cannot tolerate, and they'll just abscond. And so during these removals, a lot of rookies and actually pros as well, who don't really realize this, if they leave the babies to get too cold, then the hive will just say, screw this, we're out of here. It's too much for them to contend with. So that's why it's really critical, through the removal. Everything else can be done slow, methodical, but that when you're working with the bees at this point, it's really critical to get the babies warm. All right, so classic question we get asked is, what do we do with all this honeycomb? There's 2 sheets of honeycomb for the bees inside. It's colder, so I need to only put in what they can keep warm right now. And the rest of this, I'm going to make sure that the rest of the bees get off of these. But this sheet of comb is brood babies, and this gets fed to our chickens. It's a great source of protein. This way nothing gets wasted. There's not much honey in here. The nectar, there's a little bit of nectar there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be putting that in a baggie, and then they're going to be fed right back into the bees so that they can restart their colony a little bit quicker. It takes, I've heard, 7 to 14 pounds of resources to create 1 pound of wax. So the bees definitely need these resources to start over again. And we don't want to keep any of that for ourselves. We want to give them as much of a leg up to get restarted. So all babies, all brood. Oh, and here's a queen cell. So I think I mentioned earlier that these bees were swarming. They had swarmed off, and right now I'm just looking for eggs while I'm cleaning the bees off, just to see if there's a viable queen in here. But so far I haven't seen any signs that the new queen is good to go, or that she's making babies yet. But that's fine. Alright, that's it for now. Gonna keep cleaning and then start packing up. Alright, here's something that you pretty much only really see in open air hives like this. But I love this network looking top down on the hive. And these are little, I think they call them communication channels, but they're just tunnels that the bees have built into their structure so they can move from one side to the other. Super pretty. Good job, girls. Alright guys, so the bees are out of the tree. The babies, that's the brood right there. The bees are silly. There's a clump over here. And then meet Leslie. She's the one who made sure that these bees got rescued.
Hello everyone.
She's been babysitting these bees for the last
couple of months
yes. And wanted to make sure that they got rescued and saved.
And they got rescued humanely.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's the most important thing.
Thank you, Leslie.